Hey everyone, Oli here, and this is my review of City of Death, the second story of the 17th season of classic Doctor Who, starring Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor. The City of Death is the 105th story overall. It's 4 parts long and it's written by David Fisher, Douglas Adams, and Graham Williams under the pseudonym of David Agnew. So the plot of City of Death is as follows. Whilst on holiday in Paris, the Doctor and Romana discover that something is amiss with time. Who is conducting the secret time experiments and what connects them to the Mona Lisa? The answer lead them to a secret that has been hidden for 400 million years. So that is the plot of City of Death. City of Death. City of Death is without a doubt one of, well, not just one of Tom Baker's greatest stories. I think it's one of the greatest stories ever in Doctor Who history. I can see I can see why it's very popular. Every time I watch the City of Death, I think this is like, in terms of rewatching for these reviews, I think this is like my 5th time watching the City of Death, 5th or 6th time. And every time I watch the City of Death, I always admire it even more. It has a perfect mix of comedy, drama, the combination of iconic side characters and iconic villains, and I very much say that the City of Death was pretty much a prototype for New Who. And ever since I've been doing these reviews since 2019, I always had a few stories I've always been looking forward to review, and City of Death is definitely up there. Along with Seeds of Death, which I did 2 years ago, which is my favorite Doctor Classic Who story ever, and there's quite a few reviews that I've been very much forward to doing, like Case of Androzani and so and so. But I think this is one of the stories I've been very much looking forward to review. The production of the story was absolutely brilliant. The sets are very good, especially the Chateau, the Louvre, Leonardo da Vinci's house in Renaissance Italy, Earth 400 million years ago, and oddly enough, I really like the cafe that the Doctor, Romana, and Duggan pretty much used as a base of some sorts. It's the simple things that you pretty much admire in Doctor Who, and I think this is why I say there's pretty much a prototype for New Who prototype story, because in New Who, they pretty much make like the simple domestic things that us humans pretty much do, like staying at home, watching TV, and stuff like that, make it like appealing. And having a cafe that pretty much makes the story like gives it more appeal. And I also like how the cameraman managed to actually get some of the important landmarks of Paris, such as the Eiffel Tower, that arch thing. I actually forgotten the name, which is quite embarrassing because I went to Paris early this year and I think Arc de Triomphe. It's called Arc de Triomphe. We saw that in the store, but I didn't actually see it when I went to Paris earlier this year. Yeah, and I also liked how the Doctor Romano was just pretty much running around Paris, and obviously, when I went to Paris, it kind of reminded me of City of Death for obvious reasons. The music of the story was very phenomenal. I wish the BBC didn't destroy it. I would have loved to at least have like the score of the story on Spotify so I can just like listen to it from time to time. It's just brilliant. It's a freaking masterpiece. The direction by Michael Hayes was brilliant, and I do believe that this is the best story he's actually directed for Doctor Who. Speaking of City of Death, I think Part 4 is actually the most watched Doctor Who story ever. Well, Part 4 is the most watched Doctor Who story episode ever because it stands at 16.1 million viewers because there was a strike at the ITV, which pretty much took them off the air for quite some time. So everyone was pretty much watching Doctor Who. The pacing was very well done. I don't think anything dragged, so to speak. It was a very good story, and I think it was a very easy watch. The script was amazingly well done, and there were some lines I really enjoyed and really found funny. And I know I've pretty much said that Doctor Who shouldn't really do comedy too much, but I actually do think that this story actually had the right amount of comedy and drama. And I think one of my favorite lines from this story, and I do have other favorite lines as well, actually comes from Ramada in Part 3 when she was criticizing Duggan's methods of punching and breaking stuff, and Duggan pretty much justified it, saying you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And Romana pretty much responded, if you wanted to make an omelet, I'd expected a pile of broken crockery, a cooker in flames, and an unconscious chef. Damn, Romana has some mouth on her, lordy. I also like Scarleoni's line, Scarleoni's line, and replying to the Countess's observation of the doctor when she said, I don't think anyone's as stupid as he seems," and Scarleoni responded, "My dear, nobody could be as stupid as he seems." It was quite funny. I think the plot of this story was very well done. It's probably one of the best plots ever written in Classic Who. I think it's the City of Death is pretty much Pink Panther meets Doctor Who meets Inspector Gadget. And it was pretty much a joy to watch. And I really found it funny how the Doctor decided to write "It's a Fake" on the 6 copies of the Mona Lisa in the 1500s, and I really like how I really like the comedy aspect when the house actually burnt down because Herman saw Scarleoni's true form and threw a vase at him, which caused the house to explode and catch fire. And the only copy that survived was a fucking fake copy of the Mona Lisa, and they decided to put it back in the Louvre. So that was a very funny scene, so to speak. And I also like the plot point of the plot point of Scarleoni and Scaroff's his motive, because he was the last of his kind, the Jagoff, and he wanted to go back in time to warn his younger self to don't press the button, which pretty much ended his own kind, and which obviously caused the big, pretty much caused like life to start on Earth, so to speak. And obviously, at the start of the story, it showed how it happened, and it caused him to be splintered across time, just like Clara Oswald in the new series. And I think the story had some very amazing moments as well. And I like how we were pretty much introduced to Scarov Scarleoni for the first time, which was a part one cliffhanger. Had Julian Gurlova pretty much remove his face to reveal the alien from the spaceship we saw at the start of the story. And I also like how pretty much Duggan pretty much saved the human race, the future of the human race by punching Scarleoni, and the Doctor pretty much responded saying that might be the most important punch in human history. I also liked how the Doctor, Romana, and Duggan were running around Paris. The Doctor and Romana were pretty much running at their own pace, and Duggan was pretty much struggling to catch up with them. He did actually manage to catch up with the Doctor and Romana trying to flag down taxis, and the Doctor was like, they couldn't, and the Doctor was like, doesn't anyone care about the human cause of human history? Now, one of my favorites is in part one when the Doctor and Romana are in the cafe, and Romana is being drawn by that artist, and the Doctor told her not to look, but she ends up looking. When she looked, she kind of like ruined the picture, which pretty much pissed the artist off. And then, obviously, that's when the time jump happened. And then when the time jump ended, Romana pretty much opened the portrait that he was drawing to see her head, but her face was pretty much her face replaced by a clock because she's a time lady. Get it? I also like the cameos of John Cleese and Eleanor Bron as Arquitects, and they were loving the TARDIS. And I love how they were showing they're pretty much talking about like a piece of art. They were saying, "Oh, this is exquisite. Oh, this is this and that." It turns out they were talking about the TARDIS, and we see the Doctor, Romana, and Duggan running inside the TARDIS. Although I do wish you got to see Duggan's reaction to the TARDIS being bigger, the TARDIS being bigger in the inside than the outside, to be honest. And then when the TARDIS dematerialized, they just loved it even more. I also liked Karensky's death. It was quite dark in comparison to how lighthearted the story was. Like, how he died, like, Scarleoni pretty much used him as an example to show him what it was like to use that machine he was trying to build on. He pretty much aged to death and died pretty much right in front of Duggan, the Count, and Romana. It was quite dark, and it was a very good scene to watch and to show how Scarleoni means business. So on to the performances, and I thought they were just phenomenal. Tom Baker was brilliant in the story, and I do think that this is one of his strongest performances as the Fourth Doctor. And I say it's up there with stories like Genesis of the Daleks, Deadly Assassin, and other stories like and Talons of Chiang, obviously. He was mostly comedic with the story, which I have complained about before, but I think it simply worked for the story. Plus, the City of Death, as I said before, it has a brilliant mix of comedy and drama. And he had some great moments in the story himself. For example, I liked how he pretty much tripped in the Louvre and he pretty much fell on the Countess, and he was able to get that bracelet that she was wearing, which she was able to later recover, which Scarleoni was able to recover, and which obviously that bracelet was used to like track the security systems in the Louvre, and obviously the Count told her to hurt at all times. I also liked how he was able to escape from Scarov Tancredi's soldier by using a camera and knocking him out, and proceeded to write in the back to write that the Mona Lisas were fakes before Tancredi returns, but it was too late, and he was pretty much getting tortured using the thumbs, but it didn't really happen. And the scene I find incredible in this story from Tom Baker was like when the Doctor and Romana were outside the cafe, and then the Doctor told Romana that they were being followed, and then he was like, and he was telling Romana, the guy that was following us, he's standing behind me with a gun on his back, with a gun on my back. I'm saying, but Tom Baker's delivery in comedy is just superb, honestly. I just love it so much. Lala Ward is great in the story as well, and her chemistry with Tom Baker is on show once again, and it's brilliant in the story. And I actually really liked her report of Duggan. I liked how she pretty much criticized him for breaking things, and obviously her line about him making omelets and how they'll be like broken, with the broken crockery and conscious chef and the cookery in flames and stuff like that. That was a funny line, as I said before. And also I like how Romana is actually making mistakes once again, which pretty much shows that she may be like somewhat smarter than the Doctor, but she's inexperienced compared to the Doctor. Even though she is starting to like pick up on some things now. Okay, yeah, she was picking up on things now compared to as she was when she started to keep the time with the Doctor. And the mistake she made was that she actually like created a device that would allow Scarleoni to go back in time to warn his younger self to not press the button that would destroy everything. She said it for 2 minutes, and the Doctor told her that was pretty much that would have given Scarleoni enough time to go back and warn him, and go back and warn himself. But obviously, the Doctor had the idea to pretty much go back to the Earth at the distant past to try and to stop Scarleoni's plans from happening, which was a very good scene, and Lola Wood did a very good job in the story, and she does try and do some heavy lifting herself, but especially when she was alone with Duggan, but not as good as when other companions were like Leela when she was alone, when she had her own bits and pieces without the Doctor. She did amazingly well, and I think we can definitely see Romana doing some good stuff alone, but we can definitely see it happening, but it's just not as good as other companions were at this point in time. But I do like how Romana was pretty much owning up to her mistakes, and she was pretty much allowing the Doctor to carry on with his own plans because she knew that the Doctor was more experienced than she was, and so to speak. Kanan, as I said before, he doesn't appear in this story because I do think the plot would have been a bit too hectic for the location for him, but he does appear off screen to greet the Doctor when he returns to the TARDIS to go back to 1502 to talk to Leonardo da Vinci. And on to the side cast, then they're all very great in their own ways. First off, we have Duggan. He was a detective hired, and I assume he was hired by the Interpol to investigate the plot to steal the Mona Lisa. And when he was in the Louvre, that's where he encountered the Doctor and Romana inside the Louvre. He followed them to find out what they were up to, and he pretty much reluctantly agrees to help the Doctor and Romana to stop Scarleoni and his plans to stop himself from going back, to stop himself pressing about to destroy the spaceship, but in turning that would pretty much destroy the human race. He's very fond of using violence to get his own way, which the Doctor and Romana disapproved of, but it does help in saving the day. And I think Duggan was an amazing character and undoubtedly the best side character in the Tom Baker era. I wish he was a companion. He'd have made a very good companion. I think he'd been very helpful in some situations. He definitely would have been better than Adric, to be honest. And he definitely had some very good chemistry with Romana and the Doctor as well, so I think that's why I do think that he'd have made a good companion. But I do like how he was trying to trying to catch up with the Doctor and Romana when were running back to the TARDIS, and he was struggling to catch up with them. And I wonder what his reaction would have been like when he saw the TARDIS. I mean, he probably would have been shocked, but then at this point in time, I don't think he would be too phased by the Doctor Romana. One is because they were being very odd, and he was pretty much making Psycho saying, "Oh, they're mad." But I think when he saw the TARDIS, he probably would have fainted or something. And we also have the Countess Scarleoni. She was married to the Count's wife, and she aided in stealing the Mona Lisa from the Louvre. She was obviously oblivious to what her husband was really doing, who her husband really was. And I liked when the doctor pretty much planted the idea that he is not that her husband is not who he seems like. You've never seen him in the cellar or what he's doing and shit like that. And she has like a light bulb moment to go off in her head, and then by the time when she confronted him, she pretty much had a gun in her hands, and she was demanding who he was. I think the actress did a very good job portraying her, and that scene was very well acted. And unfortunately, she dies. But I do wonder, like, she must have, at least before the doctor planted the idea in her head. But I do think that she must have wondered at some point that what he was doing, because he must have had some point. She must have told her some things that she should not really care about, like how he looks or like what's he doing in the cell and stuff like that. Like even when they're having sex, did she not like realize that he was sweating, or sorry not to get graphic, but I'm not sure she was like something was off, or like did his face fall off, or God knows what happened, but something must have. I mean, she must have had some ideas, but there's the things you wonder that how did she like not notice this or notice that? But I think she pretty much dismissed it, saying, "Oh, he has contact." When she showed the doctor one of the original scripts for one of the Shakespeare's novels or something like that, and then she pretty much put off as he has contact. But I think there are other bits that she might have noticed, but she just ignored it because she simply loved him. Then we also have Professor Karensky. He was a scientist working for Scarleoni, and he was under the impression that he was creating a device that would like age up livestock quickly, then they are pretty much like stop starvation, stop like world hunger and stuff like that. But he didn't really know what his employer's true intentions were, what the experiment was doing, what it was really about. I don't think he even had an idea at all, and then he ends up dying by aging to death because of the machine. I did like the moment he was talking to the doctor. I think it was in part two, and I thought he was an okay character. And of course, we had Herman, the wonderfully violent butler, in the doctor's words, for Count Scarleoni. He accidentally burns down the chateau when he saw for the country he really and we have the soldier, one of the soldiers working for Scarf Tancredi. He was willing to talk to the doctor, but he didn't under instructions of Tancredi, but he didn't show any ill will toward the doctor because they were actually talking to each other, and the doctor was asking him, "Have you noticed anything weird or stuff like that?" He pretty much says no, but he dismisses it, saying that he simply paid to fight. He simply paid to fight, and he pretty much dismisses any weirdness in him because he works for the Borgias. And I thought that was an okay scene. And finally we had the tour. I think the tour guide that was working the Louvre, the French lady. She doesn't actually do much in the story, but I really like the scene when she was talking to the doctor, and obviously she was a very tiny woman. Tom Baker is like humongously tall, and then when she was trying to talk to the doctor, and the doctor would be like, who's that talking to me? And she's like literally like reaching his back, and the doctor pretty much had to like go towards that to try and talk to her. And that was a very funny scene, to be honest. Our big bad, we have Scaroff. He was the last of the Jagoff, and he was splintered across time, which caused him to have a split personality of some sorts, which included Count Carlos Scarleoni, an aristocrat based in the 7th in 1979. He was also like some sort of like a very popular figure in the art world, and he wanted to sell the Moon. And he wanted to sell 7 copies of the Mona Lisa, he had 6 in the original copies, and the 7th one back in the Louvre. The 7th copy which he stole from the Louvre. And he pretty much wanted to sell them off so he can actually finance the experiment to send him back to time to warn his younger self to not press the button that would cause him to like be splintered across time. There was also a theory that one of Scarf's splinters was King Richard the Lionheart, who Julian Glover played in The Crusades, which was the first Doctor story. And because of the experiments he was in, that was causing like the time jump, so to speak, and also caused the cracks in time that the Doctor Romana noticed. He successfully ends up going back in time, time to when his ship exploded, but thanks to Romana, the plan fails. Well, thanks to Romana, he was able to go back, but then his plan fails when Dogon punched him, which caused him to go back to Paris, 1979, and then he's killed in the fight that destroyed the chateau. He was an incredible villain. I think Julian Glover did an amazing job playing him, and props to him for that. In terms of any faults in the story, I can't really find any faults, but I can say that the criticism of how the Doctor Romano running around Paris for a good chunk of the story was quite valid. But I guess it was to show viewers that look at us, we can film in Paris and stuff like that. But it was pretty much given. So to conclude, I think The City of Death is a masterpiece that has to be seen by all Whovians, and it deserves the amazing reputation and every piece of praise it gets. So I give The City of Death a perfect 10 out of 10, and I haven't given those in a while. My next story will be The Creature from the Pit, so keep an lookout for that. Thank you for watching this review. Please subscribe to this channel and follow me on the social media sites I am on and listed in the description. Until then, see you later.